So every year I try and come up with some sort of chiddush for Purim. Something now there's Purim Torah, and then there's what I call Toras Purim. Purim Torah is something which is just cute and funny and not necessarily amistic. Whereas Toras Purim should also be cute and perhaps funny, but should also have some degree of MS to it, and has some a significant idea behind the thing, which happens to be cute and engaging. And this year I focused on a couple of things, on Iggeres Purim, which is at the end of the Megillah where Esther writes Iggeres Purim, and also on the word Mikreh, which we'll come to, as it says by Amalek Asher Korcha Baderech. So I have 3 posts which I put up on this so far, and we'll start here with the first post which I put up, which is that it said, I'm going to skip the shackle part. Let's go from over here. Iggeres Purim in Gematria is 945. Okay, so one of the ways which I like using Gematrias is by checking the pasuk in the Torah, which is the 945th pasuk in this case. But I didn't check out when I wrote this. I just got that the Iggeres Purim comes out of Gematria, and there's a calculator which comes up with these things for you. I don't make them up on my own. Atov Shimcha L'Chanel Hodos, which is cute. But then Iggeres itself is 604, and that we'll come to the 604th pasuk later. But the 604th mitzvah in the Sefer HaChinuch is the mitzvah of Hachris Zera Amalek, which is pretty cool. Now the if you take Iggeres Purim the way it's written in the Megillah, which is Chaser, that's 939. Okay, so I wrote, if you're a Zionist, you'll be happy to know that this is Hey Iyar Haf Hatashach, which is the day on which Israel declared independence. That's linking that to Purim in a way, but that's not the only gematria. It's also Kol Yisrael Ravim Zeh B'zeh. All Jews are responsible for each other, and also Yedu Osim Miktana Megillah, that everybody's going to know HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And we'll come back to that in a few minutes. So now let's get a little bit deeper into this. So why is the Megillah called the Iggeres? It has halachic ramifications as well. The Gemara in Megillah says it's called Iggeres and it's called Megillah. And since it's called Megillah, it has to be written with precise lines, like in Sefer Torah. But since it's called Iggeres, it doesn't have to be sewn with the same material, with a sinew from an animal. It could even be sewn with linen, if I recall correctly, and it doesn't be sewn as tightly as a Sefer Torah. So it's called Megillah and it's called Iggeres. So why is it both of those? So the Bnei Yissaschar, who's one of the great Hasidic rabbis, says, "Ubezetis bonei mashu murazal." I'm going to make this a bit bigger. Ubezetis bonei mashu murazal shnikra sefer nikra Iggeres. It's called the Sefer, and it's called the Megillah called the Sefer. In fact, that it's part of the Tanakh. It's called Iggeres. We know the Shem Hashem is not mentioned in the Megillah. Shem Havaya, because through the name Yud Kei Vav Kei, that causes the revealed miracles. In other words, a miracle which is revealed, like Kriyas Yamsuf or something like that, that's a revelation of Shem Havaya, the name of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, which is behind nature, normally not revealed in nature. Because he sustains everything which exists, and he undermines them or interrupts them for the purpose and as he wants. As opposed to nisim, which happen in a natural, what seems to be a natural way, like the Nisim and Megillah, where there are no outright nisim, explicit ones. They go relate to the name Elokim, who Elokim Apel Yishos Ker Ba'aretz. Elokim, who Hashem in his capacity as Elokim makes the salvations in the world. What's the Ker Ba'aretz? Within the natural processes of this world. And as we know, Elokim B'Gematria HaTeva. Right? So Hinei B'Yos Shanes Hazel Loya B'Shira Teva B'Shira Ma'aracha. So he says in the Megillah, the Nes of Purim was not with a revelation where there was a Nes Nigla, a Nes which is like the Eser Makos or Kriyas Yamsuf. So therefore, the name Yud Kei Vav Kei is not mentioned in the Megillah. So it seems from what he's saying that he says but since everybody knew, all the ends of the earth saw the salvation of Purim, and they knew it was from HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Nirmas b'Shemos Havaya b'Rashi Tables and Sofi Tables Kanuda. So you find a bunch of places in the Megillah where the Rashi Tables is Yud Kei Vav Kei or the Sofi Tables is Yud Kei Vav Kei. Al Kain Nikra mi Sefer mitzvah b'Chin Shem Havaya Shem Anichta b'Sefer. So it's called Havaya. It's called Sefer because it's because of the Yud Kei Vav Kei aspect, which is hidden, but it's there. Iggeres anitan l'kriya mipa'ah Shem Anikra. It's called Iggeres, which is something which you read and not just written, and we'll get to that because of the name, which is called as it's written, is not there in the Megillah. So he's saying the name Megillah has both element of Sefer and an element of Iggeres. The element of Sefer is what would make it part of Tanakh, the Shem Hashem. It's not there explicitly. As it's written, it's an Iggeres. It's much more of a letter, which is something which is much more unofficial and, so to speak, superficial. I will elaborate on that in a few moments. So the Sfas Emes also says that these two aspects, the Torsh Miksav represents Sefer, and Sefer represents Torsh Miksav, and Iggeres represents Torsh Baal Peh. And he explains. Amalek wanted to take Am Yisrael off the derech HaTorah. He came upon you on the derech, and he wanted to take you off the derech. He said, "Torah nikres derech." Right? Torah is called the derech. The way in which you're supposed to go. Now, after Haman had been toppled, now I said derech chadash Torah. There became a new way in Torah, Torsh Baal Peh, a brand new concept which didn't exist before. At least, in other words, Torsh Miksav existed, but Torsh Baal Peh was really only given to the individual, to scholars, and to great Talmidei Chachamim, and of course, it wasn't allowed to be written down yet at that point. But especially the expansion of Torsh Baal Peh mostly occurs at the time of Bayis Sheni and afterwards. Esther is the beginning for Torsh Baal Peh. It's the last of the miracles which are allowed to be written in Tanakh. Hanukkah was not allowed to be written in Tanakh. Hanukkah is completely Torsh Baal Peh, but Esther is both. Esther is in Tanakh, and also it's somehow transcends Tanakh. Why? He doesn't explain, but we'll explain later. Mikreh is Sefer Mikreh Iggeres. Shekol Torsh Miksav Torsh Baal Peh. Therefore, there's a machlokes if the Megillah is Matami Yadayim or not Matami Yadayim. A Sefer, like Sefer Torah, if you touch it, makes your hands tummy. Because the reason they decreed that tumas is because they didn't want you to put your Sefer Torah in a place where you put your truma and say, well, I'm a Kohen, Sefer Torah is holy, my truma is holy. I'll put them together in the same place because then mice would come and they would gnaw on the Sefer Torah. So therefore they say, I'm going to make it say Sefer Torah is tamei, so they won't put it together with the truma. And they said that only about obviously the Sfarim of Tanakh, and therefore they had a question: what about the Megillah? And that's a machlokas. And now he puts in the brackets a very important point. V'zeu gankin laYehudim ha'isa ora, and he's medayik like Yehudim ha'isa ora, but in be'atzmu some within them. Bechinas Torsh Baal Peh, the aspect of Torsh Baal Peh. K'mosh like it says, Asher nata b'sochenu. Hashem planted Torah within us. Daika. So now he says, okay, Torsh Miksav is extrinsic, and it's something which is not inside of us. It's written in the Chumash and in the Nevi'im and the Ksubim. But Torsh Baal Peh, until it's written down at least, is something which exists only within the minds and hearts of the Jewish people. And he takes it further. He says, Mashitiknu mishte b'simcha mishloach manos u'matanos. Right? All the mitzvahs of Purim, to drink and to have to be happy, and mishloach manos, and giving gifts to the poor. Kinei inyan Megillah has those who shoresh maftech binyan bayisheni. The Megillah is the source and the key to the construction second base of Mikdash. The Yovesh Esther's son was the one who allowed the base of Mikdash to be fully completed. In a base of Mikdash Rishon, the first base of Mikdash was a level of Toras Biksav. And that, obviously, all Toras Biksav was composed, or I should say almost all of it, not Ezra, Nehemiah, and Divrei Yomim, but almost, and Esther, of course, but almost all of it is composed during the Bais Rishon. So it's therefore the Averos which destroyed it were Averos which were revealed Averos, which went against the revelation of Toras Biksav. The great three. Therefore, its korban was through sinas chinam. Sinas chinam is a concealed sin. You can't see sinas chinam. Okay? But what's the problem with sinas chinam? So he says, this Megillah links together Toras Biksav and Toras Peh. Sefer with Mikreh Iggeres. The inyan Toras Peh, and this is amazing finish. This 5 sentences about to say. I wouldn't be able to say this. Toras Peh be'emes close hamidos hatovos. It's the total, the sum total of the good midos, shenitbu libos b'nei Yisrael b'nafshosem, which were embedded in the hearts of Bnei Yisrael, in their souls. Sheches misharish dveikus b'nei Yisrael malu, which is brought down from the root source of the dveikus of Am Yisrael on high. So if Am Yisrael is united, then there's no chesroinus. The Toras Peh is in an ideal state because the collective midos tovos, which are in the hearts of Am Yisrael, that is the madrig of Toras Peh. Then it'll be a complete shlemus because of Mimenu Pina, Mimenu Yosef, and comes all the different things which you need to build a structure. These days of Purim are uniquely qualified to have unity. Because of Nikalu, the Jews gathered together, Nikalu Vamodam Nasham, by their kibbutz, by gathering together, Knos V'chulei. You should gather all the Jews, they Knos Kol Yehudim, this is how they overcame Amalek. Kiba Klau Ein Lo Koach. Amalek has no power against the unity of Am Yisrael. Kamash Kasuv, like it says, that Amalek got Haneches Shalim Acharech, the stragglers who were individuals straggling behind the main camp in the Midbar. Shiyotzim Cloud, they're not part of the collective. Much Kasabir Fidim, Sharisa Sachibur. It says that when he came to feed him, he found them Am Yisrael separated out, and therefore he was able to get those people who were separate. Of course, he doesn't bring down this here, but the same thing is true about Haman. He said, and although he meant it perhaps in a physical sense, we know everything Haman says is also in a spiritual sense. Am Yisrael at the time of the episode of Purim was very, very dispersed, both in physically and in spirituality. There was a lack of achdus. Says that there was a renewed Kabbalah Torah at the time of Achashverosh. The Medrash Tanchuma Parshas Noach Pirish Mashkasu Modar Rabba Lo Raisa. It says that the fact that they were compelled to accept the Torah the first time around is obviously meaning that they didn't accept it out of their own volition. They accepted it because Kafalem Harka Iggeres, Hashem compelled them to do it. So the Tanchuma says, why? How do you say this? Well, he kidimu Nasa and Nishma. Well, they said Nasa before Nishma. It seems to be that they were accepting the Torah with a sight unseen, so to speak. That they weren't compelled to do it. They just accepted it. Whatever it says, we'll do. But So he says that's going on Toras Baal Peh. Shekosh l'kayma b'yoser. That which Hashem has to compel them. The Midrash Tanchuma says that Hashem has to compel them to accept the Torah is Toras Baal Peh. So during Mikdash Rishon, it seems Toras Baal Peh, which requires achdus and requires work on one's midos and requires a unique perspective internally, not just doing things outside which are good, but doing things inside which are good. That was Bayis Rishon was not about that. Only by Sheni Kibul Gam Toras Baal Peh. Then they accept Toras Baal Peh Baratzon at the time of Bayis Sheni, not the time of Bayis Rishon. That's all right. The first Beis Mikdash was the Bechina of Toras V'Ksav, and therefore was destroyed on account of revealed sins. The second Mikdash was the Bechina of Toras Baal Peh, and therefore was destroyed on account of a concealed sin, in Aschina. And he adds this remarkable chiddush: the Toras Baal Peh is comprised of the Midos Tobos of Am Yisrael, which themselves are product of the Achdus that Haman denied, as Amalek explained, Refidim, which were firmly established by the Achdus. This is a quote from the Sfasem, which is by their kibbutz Shaksiv Knos Kol Yehudi. Rav Hutner also writes something similar. He says that the episode of Purim is a transfer point between the persecution of Bayis Rishon, and he explains the difference is that which were the normal wars of nation against nation. When you learn Tanakh, all our enemies are out to get us, like Russia's trying to get Ukraine, right? They're normal wars. They want our territory. They don't like us. They don't like us. They're not out to destroy Judaism. That's not the Milchama Bayis Rishon. The persecutions of Bayis Sheni were attempts to eradicate Judaism, and of course the idea is that's the idea of Yavan, Golus Yavan, which wasn't a real Golus. They weren't physically in danger. The Yavanim wanted to eradicate the spirituality, or so to speak, the religion of Judaism. But Haman wanted to undermine both. And that's why he said, not just, he didn't just speak about Lashmila, Rogul, Abeid, but he also said, Dasehem Shonos Mikolam. He was upset, not just that they were the people who he found annoying, but about this religion which he found annoying. And that's what we say, that Bayis Rishon persecutions were also on the revealed, the Jewish nation, while the Bayis Sheni persecution were on the concealed on Judaism. And the Megillah is the transfer point between those two types of persecutions and has both persecutions in it. And so Toras Baal Peh became so much more necessary to be expanded in Bayis Sheni because you needed to fight a spiritual battle. To fight a physical battle, you don't have to have so much shleimus internally. A physical battle, you have to have shleimus, you have to have restraint. But to fight a spiritual battle, you must have much more shleimus internally. You must have achdus, and you must have those good midos, which you speak about. Now, a book is public. That's why it's Bayis Rishon. A letter is private. Normally, letters are private. There's an Isser Chem Rabbeinu Gershom to read other people's letters. So it is the Sefer part of the Megillah. That's Bayis Rishon. The Iggeres part of the Megillah. That's Bayis Sheni. But the thing is that there's the minhag when the Baal Koreh, only the Baal Koreh, not the rest of the tzibur. When he reads the Megillah, it says Poshtok Iggeres. He's supposed to spread it out like a Megillah, like a letter. In other words, he folds it. It doesn't like wind it like a Sefer Torah. He folds it and then unfolds it and refolds it and so on and so forth. So that's the case. It seems to undermine the idea of Megillah being Iggeres, which would seem to be something which is private between us and HaKadosh Baruch Hu, not something which is public. So it must be that throughout the year, the Bechina Pnimius of Toras Baal Peh, which with its correlated Achdus and Midas Tobos, are Batznei Leches. Now, Elcha Davar Yofim Min Atznius, and one of the good midos which we have, one of the best midos, according to Mikreh Hanavi, so it's Mishpar Avas Chesed Batznei Leches and Melkecha, is to do things Batznei Leches. It's to do things in private, not in public. Even Chazal want, I'm sorry, but Purim, just as the Pnimius is supposed to be revealed by Ad Lo Yada. See, just about every sefer written by Reb Tzadok for explanations of length. In other words, Reb Tzadok says the idea of the Ad Lo Yada is to show that the Pnimius of a Jew, when he take away all the restraints and all the norms and all the conventions which human beings have in interacting with each other, So Azlo Yada means that there's something profound inside, which is a holy and spiritual, and which is very deep and not always, obviously it's not always revealed. Can't always see it, because every day you could say a person is behaving himself because he has these norms which are keeping him in good behavior. But Purim, the Chiddush is, no, that even if you take away that, Nichnas Yayin, so even in the secret aspect of a person, he has that holiness. Which of course, like people who are not holy shouldn't drink. I tell teenage boys they really shouldn't be drinking. So, and this is the name itself, Megillah's Esther. It's both revealing, Megillah from Gilui, and concealing. Esther comes from Hester. So even Chazal wanted to keep the Megillah and Iggeres. So the truth is, when Esther comes at the end of Chazal say, Esther is the one who came and had to demand from Chazal Kisvuni L'Doros. What does it mean the Kisvuni L'Doros, right? Before generations. She wanted to be part of Tanakh. The Chazal, the Anshe Chazal, they didn't want to make a part of Tanakh. They said, no, you should remain in Iggeres. It says at the end of Megillah, but Esther is Iggeres HaPurim Azos. It's remaining Iggeres. This is something which is not supposed to be publicized. This is something like Hanukkah, which is part of Toras Peh. Not so much part of Toras B'Tzav. And they still, even after Esther's mandate, they still had to find a source in Tanakh to fulfill the demand. They found somewhere where it says, okay, you're supposed to have 3 times Mikreh Samolik discussed in Tanakh. Once in the Chumash, once in Navi, and now once in Ksuvim. So the Chiddush is not the Hester, the Nes Nistor, the Iggeres element of Toras Peh. That is basic to Purim. That is intrinsic. That's what Purim was about before Esther pleaded with Chazal to change it. The Chiddush is that there's also Gilui, revelation, and the Pirsuma Nisa, and we go and we're parsing the miracle, because that's one of the basic ideas of Purim. Kriyas Megillah in public is to be parsing the Megillah, the safer aspect, and the element of Toras B'Tzav. Okay, so now let's come back to Iggeres. So we said that Iggeres in Gematria is 604. Okay, so the 604, we said the 604th mitzvah in the Sefer Chinuch is Mechia Zecher Amos. So what's the 604th pasuk in the Torah? 604th pasuk in the Torah is Vayomer Hashem Elokei Adoni Avraham Hakreino Lefanai Hayom B'asei Chesed Im Adoni Avraham. Now Eliezer comes to Aram Naharaim. He wants to find a wife for Yitzchak. He needs to find Rivka, and he says, "Okay, this is what you're going to do with me." And he gives the whole idea of whoever comes out with the water, etc., etc. But he uses a fascinating lashon, hakrei. It's the first time in the Torah we have this concept of hakrei. The last time we have in the Torah is in Parsha Zachar. Zachar is Asher Aslecha Amalek, but says Derech, but says Chem Mitzrayim, Asher Korcha Baderech. He happened upon you on the way. So Mikreh versus Mikreh. They're both about Mikreh, but there's 2 different types of Mikreh. There's very different types of Mikreh: the Mikreh of Eliezer and the Mikreh of Amalek. And this we can have to also discuss with this contradiction. In Perek, the Dal Pasuk Zayin in the Megillah, it says, "By Yaged Lo Mordechai," he told Hasach. Then Esther's head of household, as Kol Asher Karo, everything which happened to him. That's Parsha Sakesha Amar Haman Leishkol Gizemel Beidim Abdom. In Perek Vav Pasuk Yimon also says, "By Sapar Haman Lezeresh she stole L'Chol Avav as Kol Asher Karo." And there the Gra says, he criticizes. He says, V'siper Lahem Amon as Kol Asher Karo. Tainu Shu Mikreh. Beinu Yodei Amiyayin Hoysel Okozos. And his Chacham is there. She should say, no, it's not Mikreh. If it's Am Yisrael, then it's he says you won't be able to succeed, right? He said he was there. Mordechai Perish became Mizar Yehudim. Min Hashamayim came Mazel Yisrael. No, it's not Mikreh. So okay, so the question is, what's the difference between Asher Karo? Why is the Gra critique Haman's as Asher Karo and not critique Mordechai's as Asher Karo? Seems to be the same problem with both. So my wife came up with a tremendous idea, which I actually didn't think about before she said it, which is that the difference is Vayaged versus Vayisaper. In this pasuk, by Mordechai it says Vayaged, and this pasuk Muhammad says Vayisaper. We have that it's on the night of Pesach. We have Sipur Yetzias Mitzrayim and Haggadah Shel Pesach. Right? They're two different. They come together. They're two different concepts. Right? Sipur is just telling a story. To tell a story, once upon a time, and they lived happily ever after. It's just a story. There's no direction to it. It has no specific. Understanding in the story of perhaps there's a Yad Hashem going on here. It's a story. You tell a story. When it said Vayaged Haggadah is a direct message, and it's more than the word Nagid. It means a prince, a leader, and the word it says when it says by Bnei Yisrael, Mishchu Chulachem Tzoma Pesach, go and take for yourselves a sheep for the Korban Pesach. Unclus's translation of Mishchu is Nigdu, because from the same language of Nagid and Higid, because it means when you draw something out and you take it in a specific direction. So I think that's the difference here between Mordechai and Haman. Mordechai, and then he says, there's a hashgacha here, we have to do something about it. And then go tell Esther that she has to go into the king. So there's no Mikreh for a Mikreh by Mordechai. It's not a coincidence. It's something which happens, but there's Yad Hashem in it. By Haman, a Mikreh which happens is something without Yad Hashem, just something which is a coincidence. The same thing with the difference between Eliezer and Amalek. Amalek Asher Korcha B'derech, all the Sfarim say. Amalek believes in chances, in randomness, in chances. That's why Haman, he Pura girl, he made a lottery, because everything is by chance in this world. And I can randomly accomplish things like destroying Am Yisrael. Like by Bilam, he had the same idea to find the moment in which HaKadosh Baruch was angry and randomly have Klal Yisrael destroyed. There's a randomness in Bria. I can take advantage of it. Eliezer, no, there's no randomness. And it says, Hashem okay, Adoni Abraham hakreino lefanai hayom. I know if it happens, it might think it's a coincidence that this woman Rivka came out. No, I know there's no Mikreh. Everything is what's in Hashem. So that's the Iggeres is the understanding that everything, even though it looks like something else or it can look like something else, it means that everything is what's in Hashem, and we learn from that 604th verse. Now it's going to go with diversion here a bit. The Megillah has 167 psukim. In some editions, at the end of the Megillah, gives that total and a simon, the gematria of the total, and it says that that's Pnuel. Where does Pnuel appear in Tanakh? It appears by Yaakov Avinu. When Yaakov Avinu finishes fighting the Malach, it says, and last two psukim here, by Kra Yaakov Shema Makom Pniel, Krisokim Panim El Panim Batina Tzel Nafshi. Yaakov called the place Pniel. Avar es Pnuel. Okay, so that's Pnuel. So before getting into the correction of this correction, you know that there are two people named Pnuel in Tanakh. Divrei Yom Aleph 4:4 and 8:25. One is from Shevet Yehuda, one is from Shevet Binyamin, which works very well with Purim because we know that Mordechai is from Shevet Binyamin and Shevet Yehudi, Yishimini, and Mordechai HaYehudi. And another Nakuda is Pnuel Gematria is Hashem Havaya Elokeinu Havaya Hashem Elokeinu Hashem Echad, which comes back to what we said before that we let me go to the next part. Because we're running out of time here. Okay, so first of all, it says, interestingly enough, that Mordechai, it says that one of Mordechai's ancestors was this Pnuel from Shevet Binyamin. Is listed here in the Yichus of Mordechai. But you see, look at the first in the Psukim Pniel and Pnuel. The difference is that first Yaakov thought only he could have such an experience of encountering divinity. First person Yachid, I had this experience. But then Torah says ultimately all humanity will come to such an experience. Panu, everybody will turn to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, which we'll be down for later when we say Lafnos Panu Elecha Kol Yoshvei Kol Rishoretz. So, but that's the ultimate gula. That's when we say Hashem Echad Shmo Echad, right? Like the gematria of Echad Shmo Echad. But there was one time in history when that took place, even in the midst of Golus. And it must be because this took place. Yaakov came to Pnuel while still limping before he came to Shechem. So it'd be a time when before the ultimate Gula there is the Rabbi Mamei Aretz Misyadi, which is quote from the Megillah. When is that? So Rabbi Yochanan says, Gemara says, Yochanan Pasach Pischolai Parsha. So he explained the Megillah Esther Mehacha based on the following pasuk. Zachar Chazdo Be'emunaso Beis Yisrael. When Hashem remembers His kindness and trust in Yisrael, all the ends of the earth. F's in modern Hebrew is zero, right? All the zeros of the earth, all the ends of the earth, everywhere, no matter who, what, when, where. Saw Yeshua Elokeinu. Amosai ro koab sioris as Yeshua Elokeinu. We made Mordechai Esther. That's when they saw that, and that's the time in history when even before the ultimate Gula, there was a recognition even within Teva, which is much greater than the ultimate Gula, which is going to be by Nisim, that HaKadosh Baruch was behind everything. And this is cute. It's not. It says, when does the Av say or say the hand of Hashem? By the Iggeres. Rashi says there in Megillah, so obviously he means literally letters, but we could say it's the idea of Iggeres, the idea of this understanding intuitively that there's a unique kedusha in the achdus and the midos of Am Yisrael. So so how do we get? And that's what Reb Tzadok says. Shamati the Megillah lashon is galus. The Megillah is a revelation because in Zgala kider chateva they can reveal also the derech hateva gamkein hanhagas Hashem is one. It's also Hashem conducts it. Because Yeshua derech hateva, then it was a natural salvation through nature. The Mikreh called it, and everybody recognized doing all us Hashem's, but that Hashem was doing this. Zerias kolam seoretz. Everybody saw that. Yeshua b'derech hateva hainu tznius v'abashal lo b'nes megula. That's the Iggeres type of miracle. It's in tznius. It's cloaked in the teva. It's not a revealed nes. That's much more of a revelation. Gam la'af seoretz. Dakar shagam derech hateva Hashem yisborach v'akar megula yoser. So then that's recognize that even derech hateva is from HaKadosh Baruch Hu. That's an even greater level of revelation. Okay, so how do we merit the salvation? Right? We know that Iggeres Purim and Gematria is 939. What's the 939th pasuk in the Torah? So it's by Yaakov Avinu. Yaakov says, I'm terrified. I'm smaller than all the chasadim and emes which you did for me. I don't deserve it. How am I supposed to be saved now? And so it explains the difference between Yaakov and Esau is between Haman and Am Yisrael. Arrogance and humility, and it's late, so I can't read it all inside. But he says, Haman, when he comes into Achashverosh, says to try to say that Mordechai should be hung on the tree, says, and he says here, Haman, according to the Svarim, he held himself not to be a big tzaddik, not just a Stalma person. He'll take the place of Am Yisrael. And that's why we're supposed to say the Machzis HaShekel. He said, I'll take the place of Am Yisrael. He had a tremendous arrogance. And the idea of Am Yisrael is the opposite, right? You have to realize that the more great a person is, the more humble a person becomes. Like Yaakov Avinu said, and Moshe Rabbeinu said, he asked for HaKadosh Baruch Hu, I don't have any merit. Please save me as a gift. So a person comes to the Yeshua, obviously comes to Yeshua by Anava. Anava is the highest madrega of Midos Tovos. And it says, Ekav Anava Yiras Hashem. You have to first have tremendous chachma. Yerushalayim, only then can you be Anav. I frequently tell over Winston Churchill used to say about Clement Attlee, his successor, the greatest insult of all time. Mr. Attlee is a modest man. He has much to be modest about. It's the greatest insult ever said. But so to be a real honor, you have to know that I'm a great person, and nevertheless, I have nothing relative to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Everything I have is devoted to Am Yisrael. Everything should be who call Yisrael Ravim Zel Lazeh. And everything I have is nothing. I can only ask for rachamim for HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Hashem says, I look for anovim Yushu Oretz, humble people. So that's why I know that when the Baal Turim comments on the next bus of their embraces, Hatzileni no miyad. It says, Hatzileni no miyadachim yad Esav. Rabbi Purim says, Hatzileni no miyad Roshei Tevos. Haman. So Ratzel Remez the Haman Shiyatzel Akos Ema Banim. You can see no Tafin Nashim, right? Just like Yaakov says, Knevavi Kane Ema Nashim, right? Also Haman came and said Tafin Nashim. So the idea of Katonti Mikach Hasadim, the humility which Yaakov displayed, is also that the core of the Midos Tovos. And again, as we said, even on Purim, we want to show it. But the rest of the year, the greatest Midos, that's the Alechas. Everything should be with Anova. Everything's supposed to be internal, and Midos Tovos are the basis of the purpose of the generations which came after Megillas Esther, the generations of Toras Baal Peh. And that way, if we have that way, we can also come to see that if we have this connection with HaKadosh Baruch Hu internally, that every Mikreh is a Mikreh of Hashem Elokecha. Like Eliezer says, it's not a coincidence, but rather HaKadosh Baruch Hu is involved with it, and that's why it happens. So we have these ideas which come up again, Iggeres Purim and Iggeres, right? Iggeres Purim 939. Right, from the 9th part of the Toras, because then we call it Chasadim, Iggeres 604 mitzvahs, to Timcha Zecher Amalek, and 604 pasuk is Akrei Hashem Elokai Panai, and the Iggeres Purim is Koisa Ravim Zel Lazeh, and Pnuel is Hashem Echad Ushmo Echad. I'm sorry, Hashem Echad Ushmo Echad. Hashem Elokeinu Hashem Echad. Sorry, Hashem Elokeinu Hashem Echad. And this is all these ideas come together in what the Megillah accomplished in its time, what Purim is supposed to accomplish in its every year in its time, and what eventually the Gula is going to be. And Rashba says, when it says, always keep Purim, no matter what generation they're in, no matter how much difficulty there are, there is always Purim. Because this is intrinsic to the neshama, in a Jewish neshama, that achdus, which is intrinsic in those midos tovos which come from Bekus and HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And all of you should have a wonderful and freilich and Purim. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Have a good night.